Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Open to Work Beyond the Label, the podcast for talent in transition. Today, I have a special guest, Patrice. Patrice is actually not open to work at all. Patrice has a very inspiring story, and I wanted to have her come on here to inspire all of you who are potentially looking at how you could pivot careers. So, Patrice is a former teacher who boldly pivoted from education into the fast-paced world of tech and software sales. Over After over a decade in the classroom, Patrice realized her superpowers, problem solving, empathy, and communication, which were exactly what companies need in the business world. She'll share today how she navigated self-doubt, learned to tell her story differently, and landed a role that aligned with her strengths and ambition. If you've ever felt stuck or questioned whether a big career shift is even possible, this episode should give you that spark that you need to light that fire. Patrice's story is proof that you can reinvent yourself and build a career that you love no matter where you're starting from. So thank you, Patrice, for being here.
Thanks for having me. I feel so honored to be on here today.
Yes, well, your story is so great and so many are going to be inspired. So let's start with who Patrice is. Forget about teaching, forget about software sales. Like, who's Patrice?
I am like the typical Jersey girl, born and raised in northern New Jersey. Went to Rutgers, never left Jersey, always been here. And I'm a mom of two. So I have two little girls. My oldest daughter's name is Talia. She just turned 5. And then my little one's Annalise. She's turning 3 in a couple days. She'll be 3 in June. I'm also a wife. So I actually met my husband at Rutgers. And then later on, we got together and we've been married for 10 years and we're celebrating our 10th wedding anniversary next week in Japan. So super excited about that. But I mean, that's pretty much it. That's all about me.
Oh my gosh. So when
Love to travel too.
yes, well, you're going to Japan and I need to hear all about that, which I know I will. First of all, happy anniversary. That's exciting. And it sounds like you have so much to be grateful for. I knew we were going to get along when you said Jersey. You're a Jersey girl because I'm from New York, but I'm a Jersey girl at heart as well because I lived there for some time. So tell us how you started your career and then ultimately how you got to where you are today.
When I first went to college, I really wasn't sure what I was going to do. I had an idea, and sales was a little bit in the back of my mind, but I wasn't sure on it. And then I decided that, okay, education is a good fit for me. When I graduated Rutgers, I actually didn't start out with an education degree. So I got my master's at Montclair State, got into the classroom. And early on in my teaching career, I want to say I knew that I wasn't going to be a teacher long term. I knew I kind of wanted something more out of my career. Not to say, there's nothing wrong with the classroom. I did like my time in the classroom, but I kind of felt like I wanted a little bit more of a challenge. So I did get a second master's degree in education leadership. So I was thinking, okay, maybe I could be an administrator, principal. It's kind of being prepped and groomed to go that route. And then, after I had my second child, I thought to myself, being a teacher and being in public ed is great, but during COVID, I felt like there was a lot of scrutiny in, public education, especially in English. Testing became such like a focus and forefront. And, it was a lot of work. I was grading so many essays every week. Weekends were being eaten up. And I thought to myself, hey, like I like working. I like getting involved. I was always involved in like the school and school programs. And you know what? If I'm going to put my all into working, I want to get something more out of it for myself. So that's when I decided to, consider a career change. And I have to say, I thought about it so many years before I actually made the move. I thought about it as early as maybe my first year of teaching, but I just thought, I'm stuck. I have a degree in education. I'm stuck here. Nobody will hire me. But again, after I had my second kid, I thought to myself, hey, you know what? I'm going to just go for it and I'm going to just try it out. And then, yeah, eventually, I got my resume together, translated it into more corporate speak, and just networked my butt off until I got a job. So, sales was again, it was something that I was interested in and something that I thought about. And just talking with people in the field made me think, okay, you know what? I can do this. And with sales, the more you put into it, the more money you get out of it. So that was a huge draw as well.
Amen. That's why I'm in sales. So we talk a lot about mindset on this podcast because pivoting in your career, growing your career, it takes a lot of focus on mindset. What mindset was required or what mindset shifts were required going from teaching into software sales?
Yeah. So I have to say that the mindset shift started earlier than when I actually began the new role. Again, like I was thinking about what I can do outside of education. Software sales, as talking about it before, it was like a hot topic. I had experience in technology as a teacher. So I tried to do that mindset shift early on by just connecting with as many people as I can who were in the role. So anybody that I saw from a particular company that I was interested in, that I wanted to work for, I would blindly reach out to them on LinkedIn and I would say, hey, I'm a teacher who's looking to pivot into tech sales. Do you have a few minutes just to talk to me on your experience and what that's like? So as I was having these conversations and learning more about what the job was like day to day, I was starting to kind of like pivot that mindset. You know, in public education, it's a whole different animal than corporate. You know, I never even heard of what a pipeline was before until I had these conversations. So just learning, you know, like, okay, this is what it's like in corporate. It's very different from public education. But I don't know, like I kind of just threw myself into it when I decided to do it. So I just made the decision and I didn't turn back. And every little piece of information that I learned, I retained. And, you know, I tried to grow from there.
It's super helpful to know that you kind of had to pivot into like a sales mindset,
Yeah.
right? Like teaching, you have a lot of skills that are transferable, but it's the actual blind reaching out to people to
Yeah.
say, hey, can we chat? That's really intimidating for people, to be honest with you. Like,
Yeah.
even me, like, I'm like sliding in people's DMs to be like, hey, you want to be on my podcast? And they're open to work. And I'm like, I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable. It, it's got to get done. So, can you share a time that you've slid in someone's LinkedIn
Yes.
messages and it's resulted in something very positive for you?
Absolutely. Doug Landis. Doug Landis is the best. So Doug Landis, he is such a guy in tech. And when I was calling on different people and just networking and talking with different people in the field of tech sales, somebody recommended that I listen to a podcast, and Doug was on it. And he seemed like the coolest guy. I wanted to connect with him. I wanted to learn from him. I wanted to get his insights. So I just blindly reached out to him on LinkedIn using his advice that he gave in the podcast on how to reach out to people on LinkedIn. So, like, I actually listened to what he had to say and I referenced things in my message that spoke to me personally, and that I wanted to hear more about from him. And we connected on LinkedIn, stayed in touch. And every step of the way in my career journey, I would always reach back out to him and say, hey, Doug, guess what I'm working on now? Or, hey, guess what, Doug? I'm looking into getting a job here. Or what do you think about this? So I've just always stayed in touch with him. And he was always rooting me on from the sidelines via LinkedIn. And he even recommended that I go to Girls Club. So I just want to say, like, for those people who are afraid to take a chance, let go of your ego and just go for it, because you never know who is going to impact you and who is going to listen to you, who is going to give you thoughtful feedback that will help you grow as not only in your career, but an individual. So that's where Doug came in.
I love it.
But yeah.
So, Patrice, I've got to imagine through the process, and I don't know how long it took, so maybe you can share how long it took, but through that process, what moments of doubt did you face and how did you push through?
I had a ton of doubt when I first decided, to make that change. I woke up one day, my daughter was 2 months old. I was very fortunate. She was sleeping through the night. And I
The
said, that's
first one
it.
or the second one?
Second one.
Okay.
The second one, I decided to make the career change. And I woke up and I said to myself, that's it, I'm making the change. And, like I tried not to look back, but I had a lot of doubts after that decision. I thought to myself, no one's going to give me a chance. People are going to look at my resume and just see a teacher. I even had ed tech companies that I reached out to for a BDR position, which is entry level sales, that usually, young people in their career start off with that kind of a job. I had those companies tell me that I didn't have enough experience and
Wow.
that, yeah, and that I was not at all what they were looking for. So right away in the beginning, I thought to myself, hey, if an ed tech company on a product that I actually use in my classroom is telling me that I'm not qualified and I'm not what they're looking for, I thought to myself, how am I going to do this? So what I did was one of my friends who successfully made the pivot from the classroom, she's a customer success manager. I reached out to her and I asked her, like, how did you do this? And she said that she worked with this guy who's her friend. His name is Eli. And Eli is a career coach. And she said, talk to Eli. I'm sure he'll be able to give you some clarity. So I spoke to Eli and I just said to him, listen, I just need you to tell me that I can do this because I'm having a lot of people telling me that I can't. And I'm having a lot of people telling me that it's too late and I'm getting rejected left and right. Is this even possible? Can my skills be transferable? Is this too late for me to go to corporate? And he told me that it wasn't too late and that I can do it. And he said, all you need is to be motivated and put yourself out there. And he said, you're doing that and it will eventually fall into place. There were two companies that I really narrowed down that I wanted. And when I got rejected from one of them, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm motivated. I'm a hard worker. I have work experience. It will fall into place. I'm just not going to take my foot off the gas. So that was my first big doubt. And then I want to say my other doubt came when I first started as an account executive. Being a BDR, I kind of fell into that role very easily. And I loved it and I thrived in it and I did very well in it. So after I was a BDR and I moved up to an account executive, to me, that's when I felt like, all right, this is where the career change is really starting because this was what I really wanted. And early on, I really had a hard time trying to negotiate, talk about money because I came from a space of education where that was never something on the radar. So I thought to myself early on, there's no way I'm going to do this. I don't know. I don't know how to do the business speak. I was great with getting meetings. I was great with rapport building. I was great with building pipeline. I don't know how I'm going to close deals. I don't know what I'm doing. However, I really leaned on my manager at the time. He's great, Dan Chesser. And he really taught me you don't need to necessarily have negotiating experience. You don't need to be business savvy. You're just having conversations and you're just trying to make sure that you're finding a win, not only for the customer, but also for yourself and really trying to find that common ground that suits both needs. So that was another shift for me because I kept falling into the whole teacher mentality where I would want to constantly help and help and help and help and help. But when you help and help and help and help and help too much, it's not going to close deals.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out how I can, do it more of a give and a take. And then once that started happening, it kind of clicked pretty well. And then I was able to become successful in my roles.
Wow. So much to unpack there.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm like, this podcast, I know it's only 30 minutes, but there's so much.
I love it. No, and it's so helpful. I mean, pivoting careers is you have to be prepared to face the doubt.
Yeah.
And the fact that you've felt that doubt multiple times and you're sharing, look, you just got to push through it is so helpful to people. And you're right about pivoting from being a teacher and helping. Sales is very different in the fact that I need something in return as well. And that's where I see a lot of great people who are great at project management or working with the customer, but not necessarily at closing. And at the end of the
Yeah.
day, you do need to close a deal. So
Yeah.
um,
Exactly.
that can be really challenging for someone who isn't comfortable pushing for that close. So the fact that you've been able to push through that
Yeah.
is
And
absolutely incredible.
yeah, and it was at that point too where I was like thinking to myself, maybe I'm better off as a customer success manager. That was another career that I was contemplating a little bit because like a lot of teachers might lean more towards CSM or PMs. But I said to myself, no, I really want to do this. I really want to be a sales professional. This is something that I made a career change for, and I'm not going to back down. So I really did lean on my resources. You know, I leaned on my direct manager, as I mentioned. I even leaned on like my previous manager too, my BDR manager, who was fantastic. And I leaned on, you know, a lot of my friends who had been in sales like before and for their whole career, and my previous AEs that I worked with as mentors. And I think that that's also very important is not only do you relationship build, yes, with customers, yes, in your job professionally in that way, but you also need to keep doing that relationship building with your internal network and creating mentorships because those are the people who are really going to help craft you and help guide you and help you find out your style in sales because not everybody's style is the same. So I definitely have to give a shout out to a whole bunch of people that helped me do that. Box was a fantastic company for me to start out in because they were so supportive from Adam Goff, my VP, all the way to my, you know, direct manager, extremely supportive, and it helped me grow in that way. And then those skills that I learned really positioned me well to move into Salesforce, which Salesforce was my dream job to land in. So
It's a lot of people's dream job.
yes, yes. And I'm very fortunate that I made it in as quickly as I did. So I can't believe
So
it still to this day.
incredible. Okay, so now what everyone needs to hear is how did you position your teaching experience
Yes.
on your resume to get people to notice you in tech?
I have to say that there's a lot of skills that can transfer very easily from a teacher, from education to any job. Really, you're giving presentations, you're creating those presentations. There's a lot of volume of work. A lot of people who don't know public education or don't know teachers personally or don't live with a teacher, they might not see it, but it's constant. Your job does not end at 3. You're always grading. You're always creating new lessons. You're always trying to challenge yourself and your students. So it's hard work. And that's another thing that you need. You need to be a person who's hardworking. So you need to be hardworking. That's helpful. Creative, motivated, all of those skills, presentation skills, speaking skills, you know, all of those things really can be an asset to any kind of job. I feel like the rudiments of each specific job, like the rudiments of like the sales cycle, the sales process, that can be taught. But there's a lot of things that teachers innately have that cannot be taught, those soft skills that are really helpful. Case in point, when I started off at Box, I was motivated. I took the bull by the horns and I figured it out. And there's a lot of people who might not be able to do that. But with a teaching background, it was very easy just to try to navigate, work hard, and find your way. But as far as my resume goes, I was in a tested area subject. So I taught English, high school English. So what I did was like, I actually took a look at all of some of the old data that I did in education when I tracked my students' performance. And I took a look at those, and in sales, everything is based on metrics and quantifying things. So I took a look at where my students landed in test scores prior to coming into my class, and then what their state scores look like after. And I showed that I improved it by X amount of percent. So that's what I did is I would take a look at those soft skills, those leadership skills, those creative skills, and position it into how it could be in a corporate setting. But you do have to take a look and think about what are those quantifiable things, especially in my specific role, that you need in order to be successful. So just trying to figure out what kind of numbers that you can gather and how those numbers can translate into the business world.
Totally. And then if you're going to put numbers on there, you put anything on there, you got to be able to speak to it.
Yes, definitely. Definitely being able to speak to those numbers. That's why, like,
Yes.
for me, it was easier because I was in a tested subject area. So I had all that data. I had all of those numbers. I had that proof. So I would just strongly encourage any other teacher who is in a similar position to me to take a look at your SGOs, look at your state tests. how can you show that you really improved on your personal performance as well as somebody else's performance?
So, Patrice, doing this pivot takes mindset, it takes grit, it takes all of these things within yourself. What other support systems or community did you have? You mentioned Doug as an example, but
Yeah.
what other community or support did you have as you were making this pivot?
Definitely my family. My husband was extremely supportive, and I'm very lucky because like he didn't say, "No, like this is too much for our family." He was like, "If this is what you want to do, go ahead. I support you. Go and do it. And if it doesn't work out, that's fine. I'm here to pick up the pieces and you can always go back to education." And then my mom, 110%. Being a working parent and just having two children, my youngest daughter was an infant at the time, and I did have a toddler too at the time when I was trying to make this transition. It was pretty difficult. So having my mom there to help me out and take the baby when she was hysterically crying, when I booked a phone call for myself to speak with somebody in sales to learn about the job was extremely valuable to me. I did try to book a lot of my meetings in between naps and bottle feedings, but any mom with young kids out there knows things don't go according to plan. So I was very lucky that I did have my mom to lean on and to help me with that. And she supported me to make sure that I can try this out. So definitely having a support system there to champion you and to make sure that, if things don't turn out the way that you want them to, it's okay, and just have your back is very important and valuable.
Yeah, I just have to say, shout out to the supportive spouses because we need them. We appreciate supportive spouses and also, you know, parents, people that will help with the kids. I don't have kids yet, but I pray when I do, I have a support system to support me as I transition back to work,
Yeah,
whatever that
definitely.
may look like for me at that time in my life. So, what misconceptions do people typically have about pivoting careers, especially sales? Like, what are some of the misconceptions that you could?
I could speak to a lot of misconceptions that teachers have with pivoting. As I mentioned before, a lot of teachers think that they're pigeonholed and into just being in education because that's the degree that they got and that's all the experience that they have, and nobody else will see them as anything but. But that is completely wrong. Throughout this experience, I've noticed that if you set your mind to something and if you're motivated enough and if you are willing to put yourself out there, if you're willing to deal sometimes with the downfalls and deal with those challenges, you can do it. And when you come out on the other side, you'll be so grateful. You'll be happy for that experience. You'll be happy for those hard knocks. And you'll learn so much, not only about a new job, a new role, but you'll learn a ton about yourself and what you're capable of doing. So I like to tell everybody, get those negative thoughts out of your head. You can do it if you want to make the change. And don't let experiences on a paper or on a job description throw you off from not being able to do that job and not being a contender to apply for that job. I wasn't really sure if I should go into sales or customer success because my background seemed to align a little bit more with CSM. But after speaking with my cousin, who's she a seller at AWS, and talking more about the role as what it's like to be in sales, I thought, oh, wow, this actually aligns more with my personality and with what I want to do. So from there, I actually wanted to go into ed tech. That was my main goal because I thought, great, I can fuse both of my experience. I could fuse my experience along with my new career experience. And then eventually, I'll have this great career where I'm coaching and teaching people on how to use software in education in a field that I knew. But after being rejected from ed tech, my cousin, and like we would debrief, and she said, why don't you just go for regular tech? She goes, you might be limiting yourself with ed tech a little bit, and there might be more opportunity there for you if you get a little out of your comfort zone and try something completely new. So I think that that's something too that I wanted to call out is that even if you think you want to start doing one thing, it might unravel and you might learn a little more about yourself that, hey, actually, this other place might be a better fit for me. And what I thought before might not really be the best suited part for me or the best suited role. So, and that's what I tell a lot of people too who reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll say, hey, listen, you're thinking about this today, but just be open minded that you might want to you might eventually fall into something else that you didn't even think about before. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And again, we all have community. We have really supportive communities. We have not so supportive communities. There's going to be people that tell you that you can't or that you're crazy. Ignore those people. But the people that you really want to spend time with are the people that are going to encourage you and say, there's so much more out there and be open to anything. And just being open-minded, I think, is a really good way to start a pivot on your career. Did you ever have any times where you almost gave up, where you were like, I quit, I'm
yeah.
done with this?
Yeah. So I want to say probably like 2 months into my whole quest of starting that journey, I almost gave up and I thought to myself, there's no way I can do this. Maybe I should put this on the back burner until 5 years from now. Maybe when my kids are a little bit older, I should be doing this. Or, maybe that this is something that's not in the cards for me now. Maybe I can give it a go another time, or maybe it's just never going to happen for me. And I actually felt that way when ed tech companies started rejecting me because I'm like, how could an education technology company reject me? I thought that that's where I would probably like land. So, it's just don't give up, even if you get those rejection letters.
What motivated you to keep going?
I just want to say being just fed up with my old job and just needing to have something new and just needing to do something new. I was burnt out.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it anymore, especially, after teaching through COVID. And then I was tracked to being a principal, and I just saw what that was on the other side from their perspective as an educational leader. I'm like, I don't want that for me. Like, and I don't want that as a new mom. It's just too much for me. And I would rather have a career that I can dictate, that I can have more growth, where I'm not like limited past a certain point. So I kept having that in the back of my head that this is for me and for my family to improve and to bring more to them. Not only just monetarily, but I always thought to myself that I could do more.
Yeah.
So, I just kept reminding myself that if I just stay focused and if I keep my eye on the end goal, that I'll eventually get there.
Yeah. And let's just say thank you to all the teachers who are out
Yeah.
there doing
It's
the
hard.
work and yeah, burning out. Like I know a lot of teachers who are just freaking burnt out. And you're right, and they don't get paid that much to do the job. And they put in a lot of effort. They're doing what we need in this world is to raise great children and give them education that they need. So thank you to all the teachers. But if you are fed up, if you are burnt out, this is the story for you to hear that there is other options out there. So
Yeah.
what advice would you give to somebody who's listening, who's ready for change, but they are just afraid to get started?
The advice that I would give, and this is the advice that I give to a lot of people who reach out to me on LinkedIn, fix up your LinkedIn profile, change your experience to like really mirror what you want to do because it is there and you can do it, and just let go of your ego and go for it. I honestly think the reason why I broke out of teaching and landed into tech sales so quickly is because I narrowed down the companies that I wanted. I narrowed down like the missions that I saw. I really investigated the industry. And from there, I investigated who do I need to reach out to learn the most from, and who would potentially be on my team, and who has the role that I have today that I really need to learn their experience from, and just start messaging people on LinkedIn. Just start reaching out. Don't hold yourself back and just let go of those inhibitions. Because honestly, I booked 20 to 15 meetings for myself a week, talking to different people, networking with different people. And eventually, one of those people referred me in for a job, and that's how I got it. And not only that, I actually ended up clicking and talking with a person who ended up being my boss before she had an opening. And when there was an opening, and one of the people referred me for it, that boss said, yeah, definitely we're going to interview Patrice for this. She's a shoo-in. I totally want her on my team. So that's the advice that I would give to people is just don't be afraid to put yourself out there and don't be afraid to learn from others that are in the field and make it known that you want to be in their shoes one day.
Yes, that is great advice. And it doesn't need to be, hey, I'm looking for a job. Can we meet? It's, hey, I'd love to hear about your
Sure.
experience and just learn from you as somebody that I aspire to be in a similar position.
Exactly. The best way to learn about something new is by hearing from the people who are doing it today. So, and from those conversations, that's where I listened to different podcasts and learned a lot of information there. That's where I learned about different types of courses so that I can learn a little bit more like how to use tools like Salesforce before I actually got into a role where I was required to use Salesforce. The biggest thing is just really getting out of your head and going for it and just making the decision to say, no, I'm doing this today and I'm doing it right now, full steam ahead.
So, what has been the most rewarding part of your new career so far?
I have to say, I've actually never been recognized for my work as much as I have until I went into tech sales, which is so surprising. Constantly getting shout outs saying that I'm doing a good job. Promotions are pretty nice too. I never even knew what that was like. I thought that it was great. It's pretty fulfilling too when I learn and improve and get a new skill that I thought I could never do and now I can do it successfully. And then the other flip side too is I'm happy that I'm showing my daughters, because I have two little girls. I'm happy I'm showing my daughters that it's never too late to make a change. Mommy is going to be a boss one day. Mommy's going to be a great businesswoman one day, and you can too. And you're never going to feel stuck in something. If you feel stuck in something, you're not stuck, and you can always make the change. So I think those were the rewarding things to show and to prove them.
Thank you. This has been such an inspiring story. If anyone is interested in reaching out or learning more, how can they contact you?
LinkedIn is the best way. I actually a lot of teachers who are looking to make a pivot into sales or just in general, not even just sales and not even just tech. Anybody who's looking to make a pivot into a new job, reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can find me, Patrice Silagi. And yeah, like I'm more than willing to help anybody if they want to make a change because don't feel stuck. You can do it, and don't let the voice in your head tell you that you can't, and don't let other people tell you that you can't.
I love it. Thank you again, Patrice. And for everyone listening, I hope this episode inspires you to make a change when you are thinking about it. Don't wait, get started. For anybody who's open to work and ready to step into the spotlight, definitely reach out. Would love to have a conversation about getting you on the podcast. Until next time, thank you all for joining.